is just a class I was teaching to my undergraduate students on systems engineering. And any neophytes to this cybersecurity world? Anyone new? I think most folks in the audience actually pretty experienced. But we do have some new folks. I brought a couple of my own new folks. I consider myself pretty new as well. For me, being in cybersecurity field is really 3 years since I started working on cybersecurity. So boys, can you sit down? Boys, I need you to sit down. Nicholas. No, sit down, you brother. So for those of you who aren't aware, I work in an organization called the Army Cyber Institute, and this is really what our organization has as a mission statement. This is our current mission statement and our new one. We have a new boss, took over a couple years ago, so you updated it. But really it's talking about impactful partnerships and then building intellectual capital, really for cybersecurity to impact really the national security. And so even with our new mission statement, conducting interdisciplinary research, which I'm a huge fan of, and hopefully to shape future thoughts and then develop innovative solutions for what we think are these problems that we're going to be facing in the 21st century. And being in this room, I think most of you all are aware of all the implications, right? From the keynotes talk that we had this morning, a year in review of all these cyber hacks that have taken place. And again, what is the ACI? What we do? That was our mission statement, but what I want to do is really play a video clip that CNET did. Oh, it's going to be up. Let's see if it opens up. Oh, there it is.
Are we watching Star Wars or just hearing about Star Wars?
Yeah, so the volume's a little bad, so I'll sort of narrate through this. What CNET did was they did a 2-minute clip on the Army Cyber Institute and just help promote what we do at Westpoint. It talks a little bit about Westpoint itself, the United States Military Academy. And as part of the implications that we have for national security, what we're teaching a lot of cadets now, cybersecurity. I'll go over a little more details of what's going on at Westpoint, but really in this video clip it's talking about the Cadet Cyber Challenge team, what we call C3 teams. They're doing essentially what's going on upstairs, with the capture flag contests. So in this case, we have West Point cadets teams taking on the other Service Academy teams, seeing who's best. As the narration goes on, we find out that Navy beats out West Point in this past year. No, can you sit down, please? Can you sit down, please? No, it's too dangerous up here. Sit down, please. Nicholas, sit down, please, too. Sit down with your brother. Nicholas, sit down with your brother, please. And so in this case, it's just telling what the scores are, and I think we see how Navy is a little bit ahead in this year's competition. So boo, right? Any folks from Navy in the audience? Army? Army folks? Air Force? Okay, Air Force. I gave a talk last year here at ANYCON. I poked a little bit more fun of all the services in that talk. This is not as fun a talk, but hopefully it's still enjoyable. So here's my boss, my former boss, Colonel Andy Hall, really talking about the mission of the Army Cyber Institute. Again, talking about the problems that we're trying to research in order to promote national security. And really what he's really talking about is really trying to promote a multinational or multidisciplinary approach. What we do at Army Cyber Institute, I'm one of the Army researchers there. I'm on the systems engineering. You can get it afterwards. But what we have is interesting. We have researchers, right? We've hired historians. Right? We've hired English professors. They're teaching ethics. We've hired 2 lawyers. Right? We have legal. We have policy folks teaching international relations, teaching American politics. And we have a bunch of engineers, right? The basis of the Army Cyber Institute, a bunch of electrical engineers. I'm a systems engineer. We have mathematicians. We have a lot of STEM disciplines covered. But it's interesting that we have all these other disciplines. And again, I think the approach we take is that this is not cybersecurity is not just a technological problem. finding out is that's going to take all the disciplines that we have and work on better policies, better solutions, and get really frame-minded folks that are national leaders to be actually as well. So that was good timing, because I ran out of narration. But the way I look at history, actually from warfare, from a military historian perspective, is that if we look at what history has taught us, right? If we look at warfare, I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because if we think about pre-industrial warfare, it was some physical aspect of the victor that gave them, right, that spelled out the victory, right? Usually it's size, right? Physical strength. Right? Here we have a picture of Hercules. Right? It's some type of physical advantage that typically gives you. Then we got into the industrial, right? Turn of the century, right? It's 1900s. Industrial warfare was who had more resources. Those became wars of attrition, right? Think of World War I, World War II, wars of attrition. Millions of people fighting those wars. Right? So wars of attrition. Now, if we move past industrial warfare, we get into the nuclear warfare, right? After World War II, we embarked, right? The United States and the Soviet Union embarked on nuclear programs, right? Trying to outsmart one another. I talked about this a lot in my talk last year. But nuclear warfare is talking about knowledge, right? Physics, particularly physics, Einstein, the Manhattan Project. And right, who can get the better physicists, right? After World War II, we had German physicists. All right, boys, you have to calm down. Boys, you have to sit down. Please sit down. Noe, please sit down. This was not part of the rehearsals. Now, going into cyber warfare, if you think about for cyber warfare, the interesting thing is it's not just knowledge, it's the speed of knowledge. So from the talks that you've been hearing for the past couple of days, you should be understanding that the speed of innovation, not the speed of getting things right, is more critical than not just knowing about it. Because we know that from all these cyber attacks, right? If you can stop the cyber attacks quicker, you're going to get an advantage. The converse is also true, right? Especially if you're on the offensive side. If you can attack faster, right? And that's really not hard to do, because we've learned the past couple of days. Attacks are actually very easy. No, you have to sit down. Okay, just going back to the military academy side now. Now, it is a liberal arts program. It's a very structured program. I am a 1994 graduate, so I tell all the cadets I teach, it's much better the second time around. This is my third time coming back to the Westpoint, so third time is really strong. That's why I'm retiring. Very structured curriculum. And so the interesting thing is, right, every cadet has to take this engineering course sequence. If they're not an engineering major, they have to take 3 engineering courses. So unlike most colleges where you can actually pick and choose a lot, I remember I chose my major and I really had 2 electives, 2 pure electives. All the others were essentially told that sort of mandatory. That's where all these major courses are. But what most cadets will tell you, it's really not the educational aspect, the academic aspects, that's what they remember most of it. For me, boxing is probably the one class I will never forget. It's the physical ed classes, right? Phys ed, probably one of the few universities where phys ed counts. And it counts in a big way, right? You would imagine it should count in a big way. But probably an inordinate amount. It was probably a weighted about 25% of our overall grade. So even academic-wise, it's only essentially 7 times 5.5 credit hours. I'll give you some when you're done. So most of the kids will tell you phys ed are the classes that they remember. Again, for me, boxing was the one classes I still remember. Not in a good way. So a little more structure into the course scheduling itself. This is what, again, military environment, a very structured environment. 40 courses minimum. And here's where that core engineering sequence fits in. Usually it's again, we have our own acronyms, right? Freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Usually that sequence falls beginning. It's actually pushed up early. Now classes can be started taking the second semester of their sophomore year. It typically starts in the junior year and goes into the first year, senior year. Now, I've highlighted systems and cyber. Of the 6 engineering core sequences, systems, I teach systems, and cyber's the new one. They started teaching a cyber sequence last year for the first time. It's an offshoot, really, of the electrical engineering, but focused on cybersecurity. Now, this is what our dean tells us we're doing as instructors. We're preparing graduates who are scientifically literate and capable of applying mathematical engineering computational modes, thought solution, complex problems. Okay, so I knew I was on firm grounding when I was teaching my class. Now, this is the way the system engineering core sequence works. 3-core sequence. Again, these are for the cadets who are not engineering majors, right? So these are the cadets, or we call them the poets and lovers, right? These are the softer sciences, the humanities. And so for ST300, our introductory course, again, using a military approach, we like using the crawl, walk, run approach. And then for ST300 introductory course, it teaches really a lot of definitions. It teaches a lot of framework for how to solve problems, how to go about doing it, stakeholder analysis, one definition. And I actually will argue that this is probably the most important thing that cadets get out of it. So when I come up to 450, the course I teach, I still hammer this point. If the cadets are solving the wrong problem, their entire work for the semester is for naught. So we hammer this a lot, getting down that essentially problem definition phase of the course. Going into SE350, I taught this course as well. What this course is primarily using MS Excel, using spreadsheets to get a quantitative solution to a lot of answers. We teach them other things as well in the math class, time value of money, compounding interest, things like that. But it's really trying to get folks who are very comfortable using Excel, spreadsheet modeling, to come up with rational decisions. And finally, of course, I taught the last 2 years real-world projects. We're using real-world projects where the cadets have to work with a client and to, right, we don't know beforehand what the solution is. The cadets have to find the solution. So for what I introduced into the course was Central Commands. Central Command down in Fort McDill, Florida. They came for a visit to our organization and wanted to know what Armed Cybers was all about. And our previous director had a nice quote. I hope we use this. Anytime we have a lot of visitors, if you can imagine, right? You guys have a lot of visitors at your organizations. We have a lot of visitors because everyone's interested in cyber. Our previous director had an interesting saying. Every time we have a guest, a common guest, we also have an ask. And every time we have an ask, the interesting thing is we have a round table, and we ask this, what can this organization do for us? It's not that they're just getting a briefing from us, what can they do for us? And sometimes something as easy as help promote our own conference. We host a conference as well, just like ANYCON here. We host in Washington, D.C. each year in the October timeframe, the Cyber Conflict Conference, CyCon US, and a lot of times it's just helping promote that conference. But our ask when we had General Austin at that time, who was the commander of, the 4-star commander of US Central Command, we asked them, hey, if you have projects that you would like cadets to work on, let us know. That's all right. That's all right. We'll get you another pen as well. There's lots of pens and set glasses up front still, all right? Okay. Now we'll get you a pen after this. And a backpack? No. So Central Command, they gave us they didn't give us a handful of projects, they actually gave me 25 projects. And so these were some of the projects they gave us. Right? Stuff that they were really interested in.
I found it.
Okay, very good.
He still needs sunglasses.
Can you stand, please?
And on the way out, can you get a pen?
Okay, if you guys are good. It's not looking good right now, though. Okay, so they gave us, really, I have 3 rules. I have 3 rules for Central Command when they sponsored the project. I at least came up with the projects. I wanted a problem that we really want to research. So it had to be a real-world problem that they really wanted. I wanted something that was not a critical path. So I did not want a project that was, that they had their own deadlines, all right, 2 months, 6 months, because I didn't want to be tied to their timelines, because I didn't want our best to fail in that regard. And again, I wanted problems that were complex. The more complex, the better, I told them. Right? Something that they really need help with, but they just didn't have the manpower, the man hours for work. Central Command, if you're not aware, Central Command, they're the ones that are fighting Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. They're pretty busy folks. And so when they nominated these projects, I thought they were great. These problems, I actually thought all 24 projects, like 25 projects they gave me were great. That's why I sort of had selected ones that the cadets wanted to take. The first year teaching this 2 years ago, I had 4 teams. If you look at some of these projects, right, assist partner nation defenses and bolster trust. Wow, it's pretty complex for undergraduate team take on. Team Estonia, benchmarking the Estonian cyber team. Team Spike, surge of information now, what that means for the US and US military. And then operationalizing cyber. Holy smokes. When the cats got these projects, they were overwhelmed. I told them it's okay. I told them they are just like me when I first started the Army Cyber Institute. And the great thing that you hopefully get from this talk is a way to introduce cyber to newbies. I consider myself a newbie still. And hopefully the story makes sense. And that's why it's great having all the young folks here. Hopefully you'll see some of these movies and hopefully you'll watch them. I let them watch a couple of movies already.
I'm going to be a newbie.
But the great thing is, look at these majors: sociology, management, philosophy. All these folks get a Bachelor of Science from Westpoint. It's Bachelor of Science in philosophy. It's great, right? Bachelor of Science in management. Bachelor of Science in Russian language. I had Nan Porter. She was I help out with the tennis teams at Westpoint. Nan Porter was one of the team captains of the tennis team. So it was actually nice having her in my class. There she is. Nan in the middle there. And they did a great job. Their paper actually got published in the conference, so that was really nice. And then 2 years ago, my second cohort, looking at how to best employ a cyber reserve force for the military. The cyber insurance really exists. I thought these cadets were actually going a different way. I thought initially when they were doing literature, they were telling me no, but then they sort of switched and I ended up with that. That was kind of nice. How do we do offensive cyber operation? That was a whole paper on that. How do you integrate all these cyber forces for when we do have cyber warfare? And then how do we counter violent extremist organizations in the cyber world? Right? How do we counter ISIS? How do we counter all these extremist forces? They're using social media there, so that was what that Cadet team was looking at. And the great thing with this last year, or 2 years ago really, I had 3 teams that submitted for publication. So Team Reserves, Team Turrets, and Team, they call it Team LOCO, Team Offensive Cyber Operations. Those papers are in publication right now, or pre-press right now, so that was kind of nice. And just a closer look at one of the teams, I'll give you a closer look at one of these, and the themes are very similar for all the teams because we're giving a process for these cadets to take on. So we're looking at team counter violent extremist organizations. Again, 2 management majors, an American politics major. That was their plan. I was actually surprised. I didn't realize I was working with the Navy when I saw the CW04. I was mistaken. I thought it was CW4, so I thought it was an Army guy. But again, it is a joint organization in CENTCOM. And we're actually, cadets were working for a Navy guy. When they got the pictures, they were very nice. So the initial problem statement that this CW4 writing came up with is a very vague statement, but vague is nice. I told cadets, vague is nice because part of their problem is to figure out how they turn this initial problem statement into something they can work on. And so what the cadets came up with on their first or second iterations is they transformed this into a revised problem statement. This is something that they can work on, right? Develop systems that help identify patterns and trends to disrupt. Right? These violent extremist groups are using cyber activities. Put your hand down. That's very rude right now. And eventually what they came up with when they actually did their project and they came to the write-up was they refined the problems even more. They want to find the best of ways, both technical and non-technical, to counter all these violent extremist organizations in cyber. Again, very vague terms, but what they did was they applied essentially a qualitative and a quantitative, I'll show the quantitative in a little while, value modeling in order to help our client. So what they came with is a bunch of values, by some value-focused thinking. You might debate, some of the value metrics they have here, but it's not, right? You can see it's not overly complex. Right? They came up with enough, essentially at the bottom level, at the point 1s and point 2 at the bottom level. They came up with essentially 12 metrics that you can measure the effectiveness of a program. And the program, right, they broke down to technical and non-technical means, and in order to weight these, right, instead of picking all 12, they essentially broke it down to what, 6? Looks like, 6. From that 12, they culled it down to the 6 most important after discussing with the client, the chief warrant officer. as these are the 6 most important, and they rank order. They essentially ranked order these from essentially 1 through 6 and gave them some weights, arbitrary weights at this time. And they came up, again, using Excel, right? Using Excel. The great thing is Excel does this for you, right? If you do a scatter plot, when we wrote the papers, it's amazing how much feedback. Say, how did you guys do this? How did us do that? If you don't know Excel, right, you just put the data points in Excel, make sure you use scatter plot, right? Scatter plot function, and you just find the best fit line. It'll spit out the best fitting line that matches what it thinks is the best fit for those data plots. And what I told my kids, right, the shape is the most important thing. Right? The shape is more important. Upward sloping with downward sloping, with the diminishing returns. And there's a parabolic. Okay. So in this case, I know it's going to be a nonlinear function. The overall function will be nonlinear. It's kind of nice. I actually like seeing, right, when cadets give me these functions are all straight lines going upward, I know they haven't really thought too much about it. I actually like when they give me different shapes. So they've actually thought, because then the different shapes are actually going to get competing interests, right, when you have trade-offs. And the mathematical function is it's purely a summation of, based on the weights that we give to each of these, times the whatever value it is, and we score for each of these values. And what the cadets for this project came with 3 courses of action, right, as they implied a technical option, a non-technical option, and then a blend. Usually the blend comes out as the winner. In this case, the blend did come out as the winner. But the interesting, okay, very good. We don't need another. The interesting thing is, right, the mixed, right, the blended solution does come up as the overall highest weight score. But the interesting thing is, now if your chief Redding, who proposed this, tech came up very close second. So they're probably on the right track. The interesting thing was non-tech, right? If you're on human means, this is what I came up with afterwards. It really does score the lowest, right? It's actually 50% mark of the ideal value. So the insights are, it's not just that you get a better solution going blended, but it's telling you tech does give you added value, right? So as long, we are thinking along the right track based on the values that the client was interested in. Now, these are my simple rules. So if you're trying to teach new folks about cybersecurity, this is what I recommend. Start with the physical security analogy. Has anyone ever seen Deviant Olong, any of his talks? He gives a lot of talks at the cybersecurity conference too. If you haven't seen it, I recommend going to just go to YouTube and just search for Deviant. That's his name. He changed his name. Deviant Olong. Look for the chocolate conjoint. I've seen a couple of his. It gets pretty graphic. His vocabulary gets pretty vulgar in a lot of his talks. This is one of the more family-friendly ones. Shaka Khan from a few years ago, just YouTube, do a search for Deviant Olong Shaka Khan. Because the great thing with his talk, Deviant, I actually saw him, he came and gave a talk at one of our conferences, but I actually saw him at another conference where he gave keynote speak. When I saw his talk, it crystallized what cybersecurity was. Because the great thing is, for every, right, if you don't know Deviant Olong, he's a physical pen tester. So for every physical penetration, right, he gives you all his, right, everything that he broke into, he gives you the 10-cent fix. That's the great thing, right? He just doesn't tell you how he broke into it and right, what a great job he did. He gives you the 10-cent fix. Because if you apply a 10-cent fix, like he says, the greatest tools that he has when he goes on a pen test is a hammer and a nail. He doesn't break through the doors, right? We know from all these talks you hear, right, from a military analogy perspective again, right, what cyber attackers are doing, they're not going to the front door, they're using back doors. They do not go to the front door because the front door has the, right, folks know, put locks on it. They go through the back doors are open. So what Deviant Olong tells you, the best weapons he has is a nail and hammer. He doesn't go through the door, he takes a nail and hammer, pops the wedges open, takes the entire door off. Okay? It doesn't have to be the front door, it can be any door. But then he tells you the fix to that. 10-cent fixes. If you want to fix that, you just put on these wedge pins, things like that. You go to Home Depot. That's why that's a great talk. So he does just give you the physical penetration. The exploits he does, he also gives you the fix. And which is what I think from a cybersecurity point of view, it's terrific, because that's what we're thinking about for cyber defense. There are very expensive fixes, which the US government, I'm sad to say, is very much in the mind of trying to contract for. And they're easy fixes, right? How do we stop WannaCry? What is that British citizen who stopped WannaCry? He looked at the code and saw, oh, all the attack codes are pointing to this address. He typed the address in and it wasn't registered. Guess what? He registered the address for $20 and All the attack vectors went right back to his address. Okay, so the bad news was the FBI got him for
Malware.
yeah, some other things in a previous life.
They just blamed him on
Yeah,
that.
so that was actually, I think, a bad thing because it sort of stifles that type of creative, I think in this case, creative defense. I encourage my cadets to watch 4 movies. Now, my boys have already watched Sneakers. Again, I do recommend Sneakers as the first one. Sneakers with Robert Redford. I think I have, yeah, you have the images. Again, if you haven't seen Sneakers, it's an old movie. Robert Redford's in it. He's a pretty old guy, please. Ben Kingsley's in it. I think Ben Kingsley should have gotten an Oscar for this role. He plays a great bad guy in this one. But really, all-star cast. Steve Poirier, Mary McDonald, Dan Aykroyd's in it. Yeah. Sneakers is a great movie. If you're starting to learn about cybersecurity, I recommend watching Sneakers because it gives you not just physical pen testing, what Deviant Ollam does. It gives you some cyber attack issues as well. War Games. Right? These 2 movies are also prominently featured in Fred Kaplan's book, Dark Territory: The Secret History of the U.S. Cyber Community. So these 2 movies are prominently featured. Matrix. You should watch Matrix 1. Trinity does use Nmap in order to, if you see that screen capture, using Nmap to gain control of that power plant. And then Real Genius. And then my cadets, I actually gave them as bonus, gave them bonus points if they watch the movies and if they present to the class. The cadets did a great job presenting. The only one that wasn't presented was Matrix. I figured everyone watched Matrix anyways. But I was surprised one of the cadets thought Real Genius was the best movie you ever watched. So, okay. I didn't think Val Kilmer was that good, but it's pretty good. Now, I also introduced cadets to these TED Talks, right? These ANYCON type of presentations are being recorded. Right? Mike's doing a great job recording. I got my visual aids with me as well. So these B-sides talks, these DEF CON talks, a lot of them are recorded. They don't record all of them, but enough to record if you just do a search for them, right? If you're talking about, there's a talk going on right next door about Bitcoin and the blockchain. I learned about it from a talk, right? So just, I encourage my cadets to do part of their literature review by watching some of these videos. And then I also encourage the cadets to incorporate, because I know I'm getting cadets from all different disciplines, I told them to use their own models that they've learned from their psychology classes, models that they've learned from their economics classes into the class. And then I caution the cadets not to fall into the trap of being overly technical. If I have become more explicit in this because what I found are the teams that do well are the ones that don't do much of this. So if you saw some of these value measures, yeah, so if you see some of these value measures, yeah, so you see some of these value measures. Number of words identified by social intel, number of deceptive sites, data size comprehension. I think they got too technical. I didn't fault them for it, but they got too technical. The ones that actually did a much better job kept it simple, right? Is it faster? Is it, right? They get more general, more generic types of value measures. Because really, this is what I think is the goal of really the entire cadet experience, not just my class, but the entire cadet experience, but particularly for this core engineering sequence in systems engineering. Because the reality is, right, if you're in the low quality analysis, low quality communication, now if you saw my last talk, you know I like doing these 2x2 matrices, so. Right, we want our cadets to be right in that high area, right? That quadrant there. It's okay if they get a little bit in, we want them to be in that golden area. Because if you're in that low area, right, with President Trump being our current president, right? If you're in a low area, you're fired, right? You're going to be fired pretty quickly. It's time to find a new job. Now, here's the problem though. Even if you're in this high quality communication but low analysis, right, you're just dazzling your audience with BS, right? That's really all it is, and folks will figure that out. The other problem is also still the high quality analysis but low communication skills, right? It's a lost opportunity. Again, I've seen a lot of cadets giving presentations that it's been a lost opportunity. It's great content. But really what we want them to be is really this quadrant here. Clear, concise, analytical modeling helps out decision makers. Hopefully that's what we're trying to get all our kids to be doing. All our kids to be doing as well. That's what we want them to do. That's that bottom portion there. Now, here are the pros about teaching at a Westpoint military academy setting. The great thing is we have a standard curriculum. I showed that in the first few slides. Core courses, right? So I know what math courses they have. They already have problem statistics. They already have Calculus 1. They have a technology baseline. Every cadet gets issued the same computer. They get issued the tablets now, the Apple tablets. And then graduation prospects, right? They know after they graduate they're serving 5 years in the military as second lieutenant, most likely in the Army. Some do a branch transfer. Most likely 99% will be second lieutenants in the Army. Now here are the cons. There are some cons about teaching in the military academy, and this is just an description that's in our engineering building. Right? Des Mahan says that Manu emphasized that theoretical knowledge should be applied with common sense. That's hopefully, I think, what we're teaching our cadets through our systems program. Now, there are some cons. The cons of teaching at a military academy, they look very similar to the pros, right? The cons are really that I do, even though I promote, almost done. Even though I told you I'm trying to leverage that multidisciplinary aspect of the cadets, how much variation do I really get from all the cadets? Not a whole lot, because I know they're coming from a very standardized background. But I am relying on their different disciplines. So that's a good thing. But again, having all these common things also can be a con, so I recognize that as well. Now, here's the overall mission of the military academy. We're essentially graduating leaders of characters and preparing them for a career of service for the U.S. Army for our nation. And by exposing at least my cadets to the cybersecurity field, I think I'm doing that, promoting what our dean is trying to promote as well. This notion of challenging our cadets to be prepared for a complex and uncertain environment. And that's really what goes counter to what when I was a cadet, right, a lot of it was very structured. Now our cadets do much more individualized programs. We're sending more cadets to overseas exchange programs. I think our dean said about a third of our cadets spend at least 3 weeks abroad in some capacity now. And I think that's a great thing. So I think I've spent 24 years in the military. I just graduated this summer. And of those 24 years, I spent 11 overseas. And I thought the overseas assignments were the best I had, including Iraq and Kuwait. Kuwait turned out to be the best assignment I thought. Going back as a cautionary term, as my conclusion, I talked about really the history of warfare and how I think of it. Now the danger is, right, if we lose the cyber war, right, we might contend if we are actually a cyber war. Right, General Milley, the Army Chief of Staff, says we are not at war, we are not a cyber war. However, we do believe that if we do fail in winning, let's put it that way, if we fail at winning cyber war, right, don't we go back to the pre-industrial? Isn't that really the outcome? Just go back? And I think that would be very bad for law advances that already take place. And again, a lot of movies that spell that out for us. My favorite is Planet of the Apes, right, the first one.
Hey, I'm trying to find that one.
And here's the quote from, I think it was attributed to Einstein. He's talking about really if you lose this war, but really if you lose any of these wars. So that's the cautionary tale that I have. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I will field any questions if you have any. We will field any questions. Yes?
Yeah, what's the size of the computer science major base compared to, let's say, management and some of the other that you listed for your cadets?
Yeah, so the question is, what's the ratio of essentially cadets that are taking really math, science, engineering disciplines versus humanities? Yeah. The nice thing is I actually did a study on this. I don't have the recent statistics, but I have a study from 5 years ago. Interesting thing is, I actually thought it was much more heavily humanities. It breaks out to be about 50-50, 50% humanities, 50% math science. And that trend has actually been consistent for 5 years ago, for 20 years. So I have feelings about the same. But the reality is, I was an economics major. They categorized, when I was there, they categorized economics as math, science, engineering. Now economics is humanities. So it's, again, part of the categorization. But really, it's about 50-50. So cadets, enough of them are taking engineering, enough taking math. But the great thing is those who do not major in mathematics, you saw the curriculum, how structured it is. everyone's getting a Bachelor of Science. They're getting up to Calc 1. Calc 2 is now optional, depending on what major you select. Does that answer the question, or are you trying to get more specific?
A little bit. I mean, I guess I was more interested specifically in, let's say, the computer science degree.
Yeah, if you got specific for computer science, I do not know. I do not know what the breakdown is for that. But overall, if you think about 50-50, and then we have six engineering disciplines, so I would imagine to split those down. Yeah, so I would think about a little less than 10%.
Do you see the Army's culture going more towards cyber and less towards infantry?
Yeah, so the question is, do I see the Army culture going more towards cyber and less towards infantry? I was actually talking with this notion of culture with someone during the lunch break, and you know, there's enough business books that say culture beats strategy every day. Right? I can't remember who said that, but culture is tough. Right? There's always going to be a need for infantry. That's the nature of essentially the Army. Right? We fight land wars as the Army. The great thing is that what my course is doing is, it doesn't matter, all the cadets that I taught there, none of them is a cyber major. Right? All these cadets here, or a cyber branch, none of them are cyber branch. All of them went something else. Because the cyber branch folks, they're very selective. Very small branch, and again, very experimental right now. But all these cadets, you know, we have females, they're now infantry. They opened that up to females 2 years ago. Armors opened up to females. Field artillery has been opened up to females for about 10 years now. Yeah, you can see. Okay, I'm not going to get any more help. So again, I have right field artillery. Oh, these are actually the branches they were interested in. And again, none of my cadets were cyber, because the cyber folks were the electrical engineers. They were the guys and gals working on that cyber challenge team. Now, do I think that it's going more towards cyber? I heard a rumor, it might not be a rumor now, space is opening up. Space is a branch. So the whole notion, cyber got opened up as a branch 3 years ago. Cyber got opened up as a branch 3 years ago. Hey, you guys, cyber opened up as a branch 3 years ago. Space might be opening up. So the notion that we're going towards 21st century, here. Even the infantry folks, it's the infantry folks that are going to be populating these new branches. Right? We don't just grow space officers. We don't grow space soldiers. Same thing with cyber. Cyber didn't just grow up on itself. Cyber was an amalgamation of a lot of soldiers from military intelligence, signals, and then electronic warfare. So I have this space will be the same thing. Now a lot more soldiers, a lot more officers become more interested in space and cyber. That is an opportunity now. And, but even if there's straight infantry, I think this is the more important point. Even if you're straight infantry, you're going to be touched by cyber. And that's why I think that my class is kind of interesting. It exposes the cadets to that experience that cyber is. The problems that they were researching, they saw the applicability for them in the second tense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned that people would get too technical and it would make them successful. What would make them successful?
Yeah, it's not that being too technical is bad, right? Especially in a conference like this, right? We actually need very technical folks. But if you look at the folks that I'm teaching, right, they are coming into the class, and like me, I told the cadets, I spelled cyber for the first time at the PSY. Right? For me, cyber is a daunting thing. To come to a conference like this, give a talk, even to attend a conference like this, that's not what my cadets are thinking. They are thinking, how do I graduate? And then how do I, how do I not embarrass myself? But the cadets that got too technical were the ones thinking that had to be a technical solution, right? Had to be a technical, right? They were giving me number of hits, number of kilobytes per second, things like that. I did not want that. That got too technical, especially if they're. I told them I had a great guest lecturer. This is probably another simple rule I have. As much as I tell my cadets, right, cautionary tales, they will misinterpret or they will. I brought in a guest lecturer and he gave them the example, and this is a Navy guy, for instance. He gave them an example, because he was a system engineer, he gave them an example. If you're designing the next bayonet for your soldier, right, for the 21st century war, what do you want it to be? And they just spit out. We want it to be light. We want it to be durable. We want it to be lethal. We want it to be sharp. We want it to be, we want it to be aesthetically pleasing. We want, right? They gave out all these things. And was there a technical valuation in there? No, right? Because I thought the bayonet was the perfect example for what we're teaching our sister junior cadets. We want solutions that have values that appeal to any decision maker. The decision maker can change the values what he thinks is important and the weights of those values, but I don't want it to be a technical solution. I want it to be a broad-based solution. So hopefully it's not that I'm discouraging them from taking technical route. I just understand that they go too technical with their backgrounds. They're probably not going to answer the question in a broader sense, and they're going to get too focused on hunting down how do I actually measure the technical evaluations.
I have a coworker who went to Westpoint, so
Very technical?
he is very technical.
Yeah. But so technicality, I think, is not probably the precise term we use. I actually like going back again to the matrix I use here. I think as long as they can analyze, right? If they can analyze and use some numbers to back it up, that's why we emphasize Microsoft Excel, spreadsheet modeling. A spreadsheet modeling. With this simple project, right, we incorporate essentially a lot of things for them to do. They're doing regressions without them knowing about it, right? Getting a best fit line is doing regression. They're using data points. They're using data points to at least come up with a quantitative measure, not just a qualitative measure. They're actually doing both in that class. But we're trying to get them to focus on using quantitative measures as much as possible. Because we think it's easier for decision makers. It's harder for decision makers to renege on recommendations if you give him a more quantitative-based analysis. And that's hopefully, I think, when we say technical, I mean hopefully it's a quality analysis that kind of makes sense. Great. Any other questions? Again, I'm here for the rest of the afternoon. I'll probably be playing ping pong. I'm the defending champion. I am the black badge holder from last year. So hopefully, if you play ping pong, I'll see you on the ping pong tables. Thank you.